talk about the lessons we have learned under COVID. And these are personal lessons learned. I've learned some few. Nti mwayingira ekintu ate mwagamba Katonda najja ye yabaleeta. Bisaso ntamu. A channel that talks about education, that talks about skilling, is being self-aware, self-awareness. Make sure you're aware of your strength, of your weaknesses, of your emotions. Now, welcome back. In the other episode, we're talking about the causes. Why would your child do drugs? Why would your child do drugs? How does it begin? We talked about how it begins, and we say it begins with just a simple thought. Then when somebody thinks about it, we say it talks about it with a friend, a peer possibly. Then we say somebody takes an action. After taking an action, it becomes a habit because you never do it once. When it becomes a habit, finally it shapes your character. And finally, destiny. Now, what are the effects? The first thing is that sometimes it leads to death. That is the destiny. And how many of our musicians, many of our celebrities have died because of what? Remember, it shapes character. It shapes character. You can become violent. You can become violent. You fight a lot. I'm not going to mention people, but you know people our musicians who have died. Because of fighting, they fight. Before you know it, the violence is too much. They fight, finally, and that character comes simply because of what? Drugs. So let's stop drugs. The effect of drugs is it can lead to what? To death. It can lead to violence. It can lead to death. Then can also lead to emotional disorder, insecurity. Somebody feels insecure. Somebody feels insecure. And this is a mindset. And these are effects of what? Of drugs, emotional disorder. Somebody is not happy. Unhappiness. Somebody is not happy. Insecurity. So somebody, and the problem is, instead of somebody going in a rehab or somebody seeking guidance or somebody seeking counseling or going to a doctor, somebody only says, let us increase, let me increase, let me increase, let me increase. If it doesn't work, somebody increase. And at the end of the day, finally, it leads to what? To sickness, illness actually, which you cannot cure. So it becomes habitual, finds your character, and finally your destiny, which is death. Or serious what? Illness. Then of course anxiety, depression. You start thinking all the time, thinking depression, you are depressed. Remember, some people take drugs simply because of stress. Now, after stress, it leads to depression. Somebody is depressed, leads to anxiety. Somebody fearing, you fear each and everything. Before you know it, depression leads to what? Sometimes can even lead to blood clot. I know people who have, because of stress, they get depression, then from there they get what? A blood clot. Because the brain, the nerves cannot, many of the nerves break down. And at the end of the day, you die. Then the other one, of course, being unsteady, dizziness. They both become dizzy. You remember, it has an effect on each and a different effect on each and every person. The effect on drug on me can be very different. From me it can be different. From the other one can be different. From anybody can be different. From this one can be different. Now, even from this person taking this video, it can be different. So it all depends on the strength of the body. It depends on your resistance and so on. So it is important that we stop this what? Drug addiction or drug taking, because it will lead, first of all, we said anxiety, which is depression, and then dizziness, being unsteady. Then, of course, feeling of dissatisfaction. Somebody feels dissatisfied. Like, for instance, if it is a musician going to stage, so dissatisfaction all the time. You feel dissatisfied. You feel unhappy. Now, when you feel this, you increase the taking. So, now, at the end of the day, you are destroying you're either destroying your cells, you're destroying your nerves, your brain is affected, your heart is affected, your blood is affected, then blah, blah, blah. Then the other is, of course, restlessness. The people who don't sleep. And to make matters worse, somebody says, the late Michael Jackson, by the time he died, he could not sleep without him. This one, here, everywhere. Because restless, he could not sleep. You can't sleep. There are people who cannot sleep. There are people who laugh a lot. There are people who what? So it has an effect, a different effect on each and every, depending on your resistance, depending on your brain, depending on your heart and so on. So, and even on your blood group. Then the other one is, of course, apathy, loss of interest in whatever you are doing. That's why some people, students run out of school. Some people even don't eat. So it can lead to apathy. Lots of interest in whatever you are doing, and it depends on you still as a person. Then, of course, others can become sleepy, being sleepy, drowsiness, Somebody doesn't what sleep, blah blah blah. Then of course aggression. The people become aggressive. They become violent. At instant what? They become violent. They become aggressive. Before they know it, they have fought. Before they know it, somebody is affected. I know there is one time when I was still, when I was a head teacher in a certain school, a very good boy. He was a boxer actually, and he could not go for boxing without taking drugs. I used to talk to him. Then at one time he was involved in a fierce fight. Then somebody just hit him with a what? An iron bar. And this is how many of our youth have died. That's why it is important that we really reduce drug taking. The effects are grave. They can affect, and their effects are lifelong. I know very many musicians who have gone into rehab. There are very many. Chances are high. It is only about 10% who are cured 100%, but the majority of them don't get cured 100%. Then sometimes it can also lead to abdominal pain. Abdominal pain. Somebody will this one. Many of those people suffering pain. It is all about drugs. Then of course you can talk about headache, fatigue. Amanyi sirina. And to make matters worse, as somebody says amanyi sirina, then he goes for another. He thinks that is the engine. That is the engine. If somebody is a musician, he has to do it. If somebody is going to do this, he has to do it. Somebody is going to drive at night, he has to do it. This is the mindset. Then of course loss of weight, and also loss of advice, and even poor digestion. These are all effects. And at the end of the day, all of them can lead to disorder, health problems, and even death. Many of them have died. Many of them. So these are the effects of what? Of drug taking. But they all rotate around the health of our children. That's why it is important that we stop, or we try to make sure our children do not take what? Drugs for their health. Because many of them, they will not go to school. They will not eat. And at the end of the day, they get diseases, lifelong diseases, which are incurable. Simply because of the what? Of the drug. And we said anything can be toxic and anybody can lead. Even Panadol can be a problem. Even that beer can be what? A problem. Anything can be a problem. So let's start really looking at what our children take. Because at the end of the day, it affects them. Thank you so much for tuning in.